It started back in the time that actually South Australia was settled, so pre-1836. They did an advertising campaign back in England to spruik for potential colonists, pioneers, to come out here and start it. My great-great-great-grandfather decided to take part in this land buy. So he had to put up his money on 80 acres of land, sight unseen, about as far away from England as you could possibly go, and start a new life. And he chose a piece of land near Marion, near the now suburb of Marion, because he knew he was going to have to turn himself into a farmer. See, at this stage he was a tailor, which is a fairly unsuitable career for a new pioneer in a new colony. You know, what are you going to do, make suits? He realised that there was no wine in the colony of South Australia and no grapevines. So again, very gutsy, he decides he's going to be the one who's going to solve this problem. He's got some friends who are in the wine trade in South Africa, and so he writes them a letter saying, for the health of the family, we need some wine, so send us out some cuttings, would you? So these little sticks, canes, arrive in the mail months later. Fortunately, the South Africans had a bit of foresight, and they dipped the canes in wax to each end to preserve them, to keep them still fresh. And then when he cracked the wax off, they were still fresh, and he planted them in the ground, and they were the first grapevines to be planted in South Australia. He planted in 1837, and his first vintage was in 1841, and so he is the first winemaker of the colony of South Australia, and that was 184 years ago. Thanks to my grandfather, he came down to McLaren Vale and really got into growing vineyards and growing almonds, actually, and so that's why we came to McLaren Vale. But he really recognised that this region was an almost perfect combination in terms of geography for grape growing, because you've got the Adelaide Hills escarpment on one side, you've got the sea on the other side, and that creates this beautiful natural bowl in the middle where temperature is regulated, frost and humidity is regulated, so you have really near perfect conditions for growing grapes, and you can grow all sorts of stuff pretty successfully. All of our vineyards are all biodynamic and organically farmed, not certified, but all grow in that way. Because we're just a believer that to have lots of great natural stuff between the vines is how you get delicious fruit. Well, there was always wine. The smells were always part of my life. So going into the wineries, that amazing smell of barrels and yeast and wine, you know, that I really associate that with my grandfather. But my favourite thing growing up was that, you know, I'd have to just tag along with my dad on weekends, and he would be, you know, at the winery and serving customers and that sort of thing. And then at the end of the day, I was allowed to line up all the glasses. So if there was, say, 11 wines for tasting, I'd line up a little glass and I would pour myself a little bit of every single wine, and that was my reward for sort of having entertained myself all day, was to try each of the wines. I particularly loved, of course, the beer and Auslesers and the sweet Rieslings and things at the end. I think ideas, the world of ideas, is my favourite part, and that crosses into lots of things. It's the ideas of putting together new blends and breaking rules. You know, I love going to our winemaker Nick and saying, okay, I want to do this and it's not been done before, and you know, Nick fortunately embraces it and says, okay, leave it with me, I'll come back with some stuff and we'll play. So I do love the winemaking process and that spirit of adventure. And marketing, of course, is where I get to really play in that world of ideas. But, you know, actually everything can be quite creative. You know, we do a lot of gifts these days where people order online from us, and, you know, coming up with the packaging in the warehouse and stuff is also very creative. I love, you know, creative freedom is what I love. it bemuses me that in the viticulture side of things, we've actually come full circle. If you look at how my great-great-great-grandfather would have been farming, we're now farming much more like they were. It was really just a bit of a bad dip in, I don't know, the last 100 years where we used all these chemicals in vineyards and over-touched the soil and destroyed a lot of the natural ecology. Now we've come full circle and we're farming like we used to historically, which is to leave it alone. You know, nature actually knows what it's doing and it's quite self-regulating. There's definitely a lot more technology now that exists, and some of that's great. And so what we try and do here is embrace the old ways of farming together with the assets that technology can give us. So, you know, infrared overhead camera work to be able to see where the moisture is or where the vigor is, you know, that sort of stuff is really helpful, coupled with just the innate intelligence of being a farmer, going and stomping soil and looking at things and tasting things. I kind of see myself as just like a custodian of one generation, because, you know, I'm the 6th generation, and I hope my children get involved. That will be the 7th. So I sort of see, you know, that this is a long legacy that continues. But we've got this, maybe call it genetic disorder, the black sheep. So it's our logo for the business, and it seems to be a personality trait that is within the family, which is, you know, being quite independent, not marching to the beat of anyone else's drum, doing things our way, not the traditional way. And so I sort of, you know, I see that that's something that lives in all of our forebears as well. You know, my father Hugh is definitely that kind of character. We've built a business out of it, so we don't distribute in traditional ways. Direct consumer is our real sort of niche, and, you know, we make wines that are different to what other people are. We grow quirky things like Saperavi, which is unique to us, and do blends that are pretty unique to us. So I think we just like to do stuff that is our own way. We're not followers.